Now, I can't think of anything better than to be here. Thank you, Thijs, eFocus and Krem, for inviting me over from Austin to spend my Valentine's Day with you in this black box of a room with no sunlight. So hopefully you have less jet lag than I do, and we'll stay awake today, right? So social business and beyond. Before I get started, let me give you a short intro as to who I am and why I'm here. I am Peter Kim. I'm currently Chief Solutions Architect at Dachis Group. It's a company that I helped found in 2008. In the program, you may notice that I'm listed as being from RGA, which is the agency for the digital age, which I was until 2 weeks ago. For those of you who have maybe gone through a career switch lately, you know how that goes. So you see two logos on here because I'm going to speak to content to give credit where credit is due, both from RGA and from Dachis Group. Before that, though, so I've been on the services side at RGA, at Razorfish, at PricewaterhouseCoopers. On the client side, I was formerly head of digital marketing at Puma AG, and Fidelity Investments. And I was also an analyst at Forrester Research. So I know Jeremiah was here last year. Quite often, unfortunately, when we work together, people often confuse the two of us because, you know, we look alike in some ways, right? But I was from Boston, he was from San Francisco, thankfully. My Twitter handle is here. That'll be up for most of the slide. Okay, so what I heard Thijs ask was, how many people is it your first time? I think for most of you, it's your first time, yeah, at this conference. So hopefully this will be a memorable first time. But when you think about social media, I want you to think back to some of your first experiences. When you first started using Twitter or Facebook, maybe on Bebo for you, or maybe even Orkut, you know, those sort of things. I realize that asking this question on Valentine's Day, there may be a different connotation, maybe if it was later in the day, but it's the first time you use social media, right? So, do you remember the first time you posted a blog post? Remember that, the first time? So this wasn't my first blog post ever, it was my first Forrester blog post, and I was talking about the Super Bowl. If you know the American football Super Bowl, biggest event every year. There's everybody watches more for the advertising than the actual game itself, because I would guess many of you would think that's quite boring, right? American football, like, you know, hike the ball, hit each other, stop, hike, go, hit, right? It's not like, you know, it's not like soccer. It's not like watching Messi score another 5 goals every game or something like that, right? So the first time you wrote a blog post, but do you remember the first time someone responded to that blog post? Yeah? This is the first response I ever got on my first Forrester blog post. Forrester needs to fire Peter Kim if he analyzes, and if you know your spelling, there's an interesting spelling of the word analyzes. Analyzes stuff for them like he did that BK commercial. And if he's your friend, run now and find a new one, because this guy is a complete moron. This is my first blog post on the Forrester blog. Awesome, right? Okay. So yeah, I got into it very quickly. You know, the person's spelling and grammar didn't help me, you know, my opinion of whoever this anonymous commenter was. But great. I thought, hey, I just started Forrester Research, and this is what happens. This is not going to end well for me at Forrester. Okay. Maybe blogs, you know, blogs have kind of moved on, but maybe the first time you got on Facebook. Is anybody not, we're among friends here, yeah? Is anybody not on Facebook? One, two. Were you on Facebook before and you've gotten off, or you've just never gotten on Facebook? Never, never. Okay, you're going to want to get on Facebook because of this. You have the chance to have the first time to do this. Reconnect. For those of you who are on, do you remember when you reconnected with an old boyfriend or girlfriend, you know, from elementary school or high school? This is a GoDaddy commercial. I don't know, depending on who you all look like very beautiful women, very handsome men. But I related more to this guy on the right, in terms of the actor who plays the nerd. If you go online, you can watch this commercial. This is, of course, I believe her name is Bar Raffaelli, famous lingerie model. And if you don't know what happens, you're in for a surprise if you go on and look for this commercial. But maybe use Facebook to, you know, reconnect with that old boyfriend or girlfriend, and then maybe you had to explain to your wife or your husband exactly what happened there, you know. Or maybe when you got on Twitter, something like this. You know, you heard breaking news. Wow, I read about this first in social media. For example, Whitney Houston, if you're maybe as old as I am, she was found deceased at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Or it was a Sunday night in the US. It was probably very early Monday morning when news broke that Osama bin Laden had been killed. First broke on Twitter. Or if you're a Bollywood fan, you may have followed the fact that two of Bollywood's biggest stars had a baby, and of course the grandfather was overjoyed to announce that it was a baby girl. So breaking news on Twitter, right? So we had reconnection, we have that delight and experience, and most of us were left feeling something like this, right? Just a feeling of awesomeness. This is great stuff. If you aren't familiar with who this is Susan Boyle from Britain's Got Talent, right? Who we discovered because of YouTube, who we discovered in the US only because of social media and of sharing. That feeling of surprise, delight, and excitement. But that was in the early days. So we're in business to make money, most of us. And so we said, hey, that's great. We can hang out and talk to our elementary school, middle school, high school classmates, and we can unfriend them because we figured out life moves on and it was kind of boring to talk about the past. Let's talk about the future. But for the rest of us, we do this for a living, right? The people who sponsored this conference didn't do this for free, I'm guessing, right? We paid some money because we want to generate some business. So people started asking, well, show me the money when it comes to social media. It's like, okay, that's fair enough. Because the criticism was, well, when people are on social media, it's kind of like, dear diary, today I used my words and they set me free. It was awesome. And it's teenagers who sit in their bedrooms alone, just worrying about life in the world. And most people said, yeah, that's what social media is about. It's not for business. But businesses who are getting into this said, no. There's potential, and there's business potential here. So we started seeing examples. First in the mainstream media, Business Week, which of course has changed now, it ironically impacted themselves, wrote a huge cover story, landmark cover story. Blogs will change your business. When I talked to Stephen Baker and Heather Green, who wrote this article, they said, yeah, we're taking a risk of getting fired. People thought we were crazy at the magazine to write something like this. But they saw this trend. And after this article came out, we saw some of these examples. For example, Bowie Chick in 2006 on YouTube, who had, she was actually blogging about a breakup with her boyfriend and was going through some of the different features on her Logitech webcam. And funny enough, this video goes, what is now called today, viral, and Logitech sales doubled on Amazon just because she was going through with cat eyes and gas mask and rabbit ears and that sort of thing. People said, I could really care less about you and your breakup, but that was some pretty cool stuff you did with your webcam. So they went out and bought webcams. Okay, another example from Dell in 2009, Dell Outlet on Twitter starts tweeting about deals and sales. And they say, yes, we can directly attribute $3 million in sales from the activity that we have on Dell Outlet, which is great because we wouldn't have sold these computers in any other way. But, okay, you may be thinking to yourself, oh, okay, so you doubled sales maybe for a quarter of webcams, you drove $3 million, and if you're familiar with Dell Computer, they're in a buyout deal from Silver Lake Private Equity and Michael Dell right now, which is numbering in the billions of dollars, right? So, show me the big money, right? Okay, that's great, it's okay, we've got proof of concept, but I want to see where the big money is, because that's nice, but it's not going to help me run my business or sustain my business. Well, people, here's the big money. So McKinsey & Company has studied this opportunity, and I'm going to take them at their word. I don't have the methodology. I didn't run the survey. $940 billion. Okay, those are numbers that even Dr. Evil would appreciate, right? $940 billion in terms of opportunity from social business. And it's not evenly distributed, of course. Sectors like electronics or computer hardware have much more potential than grocery or household products. So apologies to Ahold and the like. But companies like Apple, like Samsung, like Nokia have much more opportunity. But overall, almost $1 trillion of opportunity in social business. Now that's big money. Okay, but the question then is, okay, we get it, so how do we get there? How do we start to build social business? And that's what I want to share with you all today, is a pretty straightforward framework for turning that opportunity into a reality. So, starting first with creating business value, making sure you have a company that lives its culture from the inside out. Then communicating that value using new channels and new tools to get that value out into the world, uniting, gathering consumers and prospects around your content, and finally activating. So what do you make of this framework? Let's go through all 4 of these steps in more detail. So first, create. It's important to be a company that lives your brand values. So once you, if you are an HSBC customer, any HSBC customers here? You're mostly ABN AMRO, yeah, or like Rabobank, yeah. In 2007, so about 5 years ago, there was a scandal in social media, and it was called the Great HSBC Student Ripoff. Now what had happened is that HSBC had a student loan program and decided to change the terms to where graduate students would have to end up paying interest on their loans rather quickly after graduation, rather than having a deferment. And of course, that's a pretty big hardship for most graduate students. You're not making a ton of money, especially as we're sitting right in the middle of the Great Recession, right? So they go to Facebook and start and rally students to discuss this action and to create a concerted effort to protest what's going on. And sure enough, they actually got enough momentum and enough attention where HSBC sat down, met with these students, and changed the policy. So what we saw here, the framework, is that power in social media has shifted from institutions like HSBC, like the US government, like the media, like Business Week, and has moved towards individuals. And that's what we saw with the Great Student Ripoff. We see it in positive ways as well, not just negative. It's not just social media scandal. See, but the key here, the thing to remember, is that companies are made out of people. Dude, Taj, you flew this guy all the way over from America just to tell us this? Companies are made of people? Well, yeah, but sometimes we forget. And that's why we have to start at the bottom of that framework with create. You have to have a culture where you live inside out so you can communicate that. So companies are made of people. We have to think about the individuals. Why? Because back to the money. Show me the big money. So there's a magazine called Fortune in the US, and every year they do a study called they do a survey, and they rank the 100 best companies to work for. So they ask the staff, all these different questions about, are you happy with your work? Are you satisfied? Do you have a good manager? Are you given appropriate tools? Do you enjoy working for your company? And they've tracked this for many years, for over a decade. And the interesting thing, though, is that people have started to take the companies that were the 100 best to work for compared to the market, the stock market in general. And what you can see is that there's actually a financial performance difference in the 100 best companies to work for versus the general market. In fact, over 3 times better. So if anyone asks, well, who cares about this culture stuff, right? Well, the market cares, and your people care, and it pays off, and there's proof. So that's why you have to start with the people and create a culture that everyone can live by, and there's financial proof that shows that. Need another example? For those of you who know the story of Tony Hsieh and Zappos, sold to Amazon, and the deal was valued at $1.2 billion. So I came from the footwear industry. Zappos really wasn't, they did some interesting things with distribution, with selection, but most of all, they had a culture where people were just fanatical about working at Zappos. So if you ever get over to the States, if you go to Las Vegas, they're more than happy to take you through a tour of their customer service facility. People just stop working in the middle of the day and they do a little dance with you if you know, they're happy to play with shake weights and dance a little Gangnam style for you if you need to, but that's the culture. It's fun to work there, people love it, and it's worth a lot of money. Okay, so to finish off this first step, when you create, start with culture. So the key questions are, what are the shared values and beliefs of your brand, or if you're an agency or a consultant, your client's brands, and how do we grow outward from that core? Okay, step 2, communicate. So we've got the culture. How do we start to communicate this out to the world? We have to use compelling tools. And the thing is, this industry is moving fast. Things have changed. So if you, back to the theme of remembering your first time, do you remember the first computer you ever had at university? And actually, when I went to university, I didn't even have a computer. I had a typewriter, okay? I didn't, I went home to visit my parents over Christmas. I took my children with me. I said, kids, it's gonna be awesome. When we go see your grandparents, I'm gonna show you my old typewriter that I had. What are you talking about, Dad? And we pulled out this typewriter, and they're like, this is awesome. I press the keys, and it makes marks, and it was fascinating to them. I was like, oh, you guys don't understand. If you guys can commiserate with me, late nights, white out, tons of, oh my God, I forgot this parent, it's crazy stuff, right? Now, then we had computers. Actually, by the end of university, I had saved up and bought a computer. And I don't know if you may have had one like this. The Macintosh LC. Do you know what LC stands for? Low cost. Yes, I heard someone say that, right? Low cost. But guess what? This computer, so it had, I believe it had 16 meg of, a 16 megahertz processor, maybe 160. It had 2 megabytes of RAM, which I remember because I upgraded to 4 megabytes of RAM. That's awesome, 4 megabytes. And it had a 30 megabyte hard disk on the inside. Okay, 30 megabyte hard disk. The cost of this Macintosh LC was $2,500 US dollars, which if you bring it forward is actually about 4,400 US dollars. But at the time it was low cost, right? It's compared to like an IBM. Now, think about that. This is, so that was about 1993 that I bought this computer. So it's becoming more and more difficult for me to remember as I get older. So that computer, that Mac, that Apple product versus this Apple product, which has, so 16, I think 166 megahertz processor, 1.6 gigahertz processor, right? 2 megabytes of RAM that's in this thing. Yeah. Do I still have it? No, I got rid of that thing. It was too big. It was too big. It's like my first laptop, which is like an Encyclopedia Britannica. You remember your first laptop too? It's like, the thing's like weightlifting. Now people have to go to the gym and lift weights, right? We used to just carry it around with us and get a workout as we went to work. So 2 megabytes of RAM, this thing has infinitely more, right? So 30 megabyte hard disk, it's up to, starts at 16, goes to 64 gigabytes, right? $4,400 in today's dollars, if you adjust for inflation. Unlocked without a contract, around $700, right? So use compelling tools. We have new opportunities for what's out there. In fact, your smartphone, so those of you who have iPhones or Android, put BlackBerry on there for the corporate users, but of course Windows 8 mobile. Your smartphone, according to IBM, has more computing power than the entire world did in 1950. You can buy all of the, as much computing power as the entire world had in 1950 today down at the Apple store, or at the Android store, depending on your preference. Fascinating. If you remember the Jetsons, you know the Jetsons, the cartoon, yeah? This future that they imagined became entirely real. Art imitates life, and life imitates art, right? Compelling tools. Another backdrop, and the second one that I think is important, is internet. And this is a chart from the US. I'm sure we can replace it if we talk more about Europe with DSL, perhaps, in terms of dial-up and broadband. But look at this trend. Around 2000, around the end of the dot-com boom, do you see how many people had dial-up internet access? America Online, AOL, right? And others over here, T-Mobile, which is what I used when I was in Germany. You had Banshees, right? You remember connecting to the internet? It's like, okay, awesome, I'm online, right? That's how we got online. And this isn't scientific, and actually Natalie, who closes the day, is going to talk a little bit more about this, what makes campaigns work. So apologies if I get this all wrong. If I do get it all wrong, come back this afternoon and she'll make it all right, okay? So unite, create meaningful relationships, 3 key categories from a very non-scientific perspective. Consumers want one of 3 things. 1, make me laugh. 2, make me cry. Or 3, make me famous. Consumers typically want one of these 3 basic things when they go online. And this is why people share content, why people engage with content. Now, I ask every audience, I've never seen all 3 of these work at the same time, so maybe if you're more clever than I am, please come see me and give me an example. Let's not go too deep into that, but yeah, it's very difficult to do all 3. You have to be a Shakespearean genius, I think, to make all 3 happen. So let's talk about this. First, make me laugh. Great example, something that we're all gonna hear about much more in 2013. Real-time marketing, right, or RTM. If you haven't heard that phrase yet, look it up, because I think that's where everyone is gonna be heading this year. Real-time marketing, or RTM. Best example of this, Old Spice guy. Isaiah Mustafa on YouTube, campaign from Wyden and Kennedy. where Isaiah Mustafa was promoting Old Spice, puts out a YouTube ad, and they read tweets, they look at YouTube videos, and then he's sitting in a warehouse with a green screen and a whole truck full of props next to him, and then creates response videos. I believe KLM is awesome at this as well, right? KLM creates great RTM, YouTube videos, and Twitter responses as well. So make me laugh, and people love this stuff, right? Very humorous, very funny, off the cuff type of stuff. Make me cry, element number 2. So Procter & Gamble around the US Olympics. So Procter & Gamble had a campaign called Thank You Mom. It wasn't necessarily about buy more diapers or buy more laundry detergent, but it was about, hey, it's moms that help athletes succeed, right? They've always been there since the beginning. And images like, you know, the decathlete who just wins the gold medal going straight to the stands with his patriotic flag and hugging his mother, right? Really pulls at your heartstrings. So make me laugh, make me cry. Third, make me famous. Show me the money. So contests like user-generated advertising. Doritos has run a campaign during the Super Bowl for many years now, where people submit ads and then they get voted on by the public, and the winners tend to can win a lot of money. And they've changed the terms slightly every year. This year they said if you are our winner, and there's one commercial that was selected by the public and another commercial that was selected by Doritos. So if either of these commercials rank number 1 in the USA Today Super Bowl ad meter, which is a US newspaper, then that person will win $1 million and be able to go on a film shoot with Michael Bay, the director of Transformers. So hopefully they like, if you're familiar with Transformers, hopefully they like filming stuff that blows up a lot, apparently. So show me the money, right? $1 million for getting number 1. So we talked about creating, communicating, uniting around content, and then finally, activate. So what do we do with this stuff? Well, let's put it into motion, put the community to work. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's only 2 reasons to activate, if you're from a business perspective. You either want to make money, or you're looking to save money. That's the only reason to do this stuff, if you're in business. Otherwise, there's no reason to do this. It's not for a lion, or a pencil, or a triangle. That's great, but your clients and your brands want to either make money or save money. 2 examples. One great example of making money. We talked about Dell using Twitter, Dell Outlet to drive sales, or a Service Credit Union in Alberta, Canada, using social media channels to drive $4 million in new deposits. I had to put the C up there, it's Canadian dollars, it's different than US dollars. But make money. Or on the other side, save money. So IBM's DeveloperWorks community, they estimate we save $100 million every year because people support each other. We just let people talk to each other and help each other. Fascinating. Or Movistar, a Spanish telco, same thing. Sees $7.75 million in annual support savings. And actually we have Vincent Boone later from GiftAff, who's going to talk about how they use social media for customer support and drives a whole new business model for telcos. Right? So make money or save money. And that's why we activate the community. So put it all together, create, culture, drives financial value. Remember 100 best companies to work for? There's financial proof that creating the culture works. Second, communicate. We talked about the computers, the tools, the networks, the new opportunities that these tools provide to communicate with customers. 3, unite. So how are you going to engage? Content. Make me laugh, make me cry, show me the money. And finally, activate. Make sure you have alignment with business goals, and we're in this for a reason. We're either going to make money or save money for our business and for our clients. That's the social business framework. Okay, so if you remember, the title of this presentation is Social Business and Beyond. So now I want to shift gears. That's Dach's Group, and that's what Dach's Group does. Let's talk about the Beyond. And this is where I'll give full credit to RGA and some of the ideas that Bob Greenberg and Barry Waxman have put into market. Because it's great that we're talking about social business today, but again, just like we're talking about history, we have to understand how we got here and why things are broken. So what's beyond social business? So for most of the 19th and 20th century, brands have been built and have competed with each other along the lines of horizontal integration in terms of how they build their businesses and how industry dynamics work, how competitive dynamics work. So the birth of a brand begins with some person, in the US, the folklore is two guys in a garage who come up with an idea, maybe in Palo Alto somewhere, have this idea, work on it in their spare time, and then it goes so well that they can launch a business, right? So they turn an idea into reality, and this thing goes to market. And that's how brands, or at least the folklore of how brands are started and birthed, starts from. So if we go all the way back to 1931, actually, there was a young brand manager at Procter & Gamble. His name was Neil McElroy. Neil's a pretty smart guy. He went to Harvard University. Right after graduating from Harvard, he started work at Procter & Gamble. And the thing was that when he joined Procter & Gamble, he wasn't assigned to Ivory soap, which was the flagship product that P&G had. Because if you know Ivory, you may be familiar with their slogan, 99 and 44/100% pure. I don't know what the other, does anybody, the other 56/100%? What, horse meat perhaps or something like that. So anyway, they, 99 and 44/100% pure. And the reason we know about this slogan is because of mass media, because of advertising. This is what we push forward in terms of Ivory soap. But Neil said, hey, guess what, you know what? Actually, I'm the brand manager for Camay soap. And I got a problem because Ivory is doing so well at P&G, we push all of our resources into promoting Ivory. So what about me? And what about our other brands? So he wrote famously, so in 1931, he wrote a 3-page memo to his boss, which was actually a huge risk for him because P&G had a policy that they would only have 1-page memos. So he decided to go all Jerry Maguire, right, and create this 3-page memo of how he needed more resources. But his bosses listened. They thought, hey, you know what, that's a good idea. And that's where you can trace the birth of brand management and modern marketing to that memo in 1931. Now think about that. We talked about that old computer and those devices, the networks. So the way that many brands approach marketing today is founded and still relies on theory that was invented in 1931. Now ask yourself if you think that's a good idea or not, right? It's a rhetorical question, I guess. So the way that brands were built were by line extension. So Neil got his wish, Ivory, Camay, etc. So now Tide, Pampers, Dreft, Swiffer, etc. And we built these brands using mass media. Because how do we compete? Yeah, okay, if we're not gonna put everything behind Ivory, we need to create television commercials and radio advertising and print and celebrity endorsements and out of home. In fact, if you know Ivory and Dreft and Camay, this is one of the tactics that they used, which was the soap opera, right? Like Days of Our Lives or All My Children. Certainly there were. That's why we call these things soap operas, because those soap companies. Great example of this, ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil, #1, I believe, in the Fortune 500, has the highest market capitalization in the world, higher than Apple recently because Apple's stock has been sliding. And Exxon is great. If you know Exxon, they go out and they drill for oil. So they source the raw material. They manufacture, so they bring that oil back to their refining plants and separate out the raw oil into petroleum, to gasoline, etc. They distribute their materials to some of their own gas stations and to other wholesalers. And in the US at least, we have petrol stations where you can buy ExxonMobil gasoline. Right, so the vertical integration, they control the supply chain, and they make a lot of money by doing that. And it's not just a company like ExxonMobil. What you see is other brands starting to vertically integrate because we're tapped out in terms of horizontal. So what do we do now? Well, Coca-Cola decides, hey, it's not enough just to make the soda. We're going to buy the distributors. We're going to buy the bottlers and control that part of the chain. Apple says, hey, Foxconn, we may not own you, but we're going to have such a tight relationship that it's almost as if we did. Stores like the Microsoft store or Nike Town, or when I was at Puma, the Puma stores, right? Manufacturers vertically integrating to control more of the supply chain, to preserve margins and control the experience. So, horizontal integration and vertical integration are fine, but they're becoming maxed out in terms of what's possible. And that's why people are looking at social media, and there's a new approach, functional integration. Think about Apple. So when Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, Apple wasn't the Apple of 2012 or 2013. In fact, Apple was in pretty awful shape because there's this company, if you remember, Jobs had gone to create Next, N-E-X-T computer, didn't work so well. He came back with the Macintoshes. If you remember some of the early Mac products when he came back, very colorful iMacs, one piece of plastic, they weren't that awesome. They weren't this MacBook Air or MacBook Pro or sleek aluminum iMac. But Steve had to start somewhere. And where he started was by creating this thing called iTunes. He said, hey, you know what? We're going to create this piece of software to help people start to manage their music, no matter where they are. And even, again, it wasn't a sure thing with iTunes, because if you remember, I had a software called Music Match, a jukebox, where you might have had Real Player on your computer for if you had a Windows PC. But Steve says, okay, but you know what? We're going to start giving iTunes away for free. And then he created this thing called the iPod. It's like, oh, okay. So we're going to put iTunes and help it start to manage music on all these devices. So digitally connective tissue. And what you see is that iTunes starts to create this functional integration which drives more value to all the devices. If you own a MacBook or an iMac or an iPad or an iPhone, you start to use iTunes to manage all your music, and then of course now iCloud and iOS that help make the value of all the pieces of that puzzle more valuable together. Remember what I said about Coca-Cola? That's why, yeah, if you have a Coca-Cola and a Sprite, who cares? But if you have a MacBook and you have an iPhone and you have iTunes to manage your music, you have iCloud to manage your contacts, much more value, yeah? And that's where functional integration comes from. Let me give you one more example of Nike, because it's not just Apple. People talk about Apple a lot. Nike, shoe manufacturer, starts out, it's just footwear and apparel. But Nike starts to create functional integration. So if you know this product, the Fuel Band, which is created by RGA, Nike starts to create functional integration because you create community, you create connectedness. It's not just buy a pair of shoes every month as you run out and as they wear down. You start to create community and a tie back to the brand. And this is what we mean by functional integration, which is what's next. Results, they capture a bigger share of that $3.6 billion running market, which is really a zero-sum game. So they create this functional integration to help consumers stay more tied to the Nike brand. In brief, functional integration, you have to start with product. You move on to services that start to connect, and then you can launch communications and marketing. But it has to be product first. One final example, so Facebook, why I like Facebook. I had a briefing with Mark Zuckerberg back in June 2006. Very excited to tell us about big news at Facebook, right? We just got an additional round of, it's kind of silly now, we got an additional round of funding, $25 million, very excited, big money for Facebook at the time. And just like Apple in '97, this wasn't a done deal, especially if you're in Europe, you know this, right? People from Facebook would come over, go to the UK, go to Germany, and brands would say, yeah, whatever, get out of here, man. We got MySpace, that's all we need. So Facebook, this is big news for them. Additional round of funding, they had new advertising opportunities, they called flyers, because remember they were university-based. But the big thing was that we're launching for alumni, and we've got 7 million registered users. That's 7 years ago, now they have over, of course, 1 billion active monthly users. What Facebook did right from the very beginning was always to focus on the product. Privacy issues aside, they focused on connectivity. Then they move on to services like APIs, like Facebook Connect. And then finally, they launched communication, which really isn't even that great, right? If you've even seen the TV commercials that they've launched. But Facebook follows the right progression, right? Product, service, communications. Okay, so to sum it all up, we talked about social business and beyond. Keep in mind, your goal is to create business value with your activities. We talked about a framework: create, communicate, unite, and activate. And then as we think about going beyond, okay, we got that social business thing down. What about functional integration? So how do we start to create products, services, and communications? Thank you.